Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jonathan Harmon with Jay Harmon Home Team of Keller Williams, trying to get our camera situated. We got a different venue this time. We've been doing it at Carpe Cafe the past 2 weeks, and this week I met my buddy Travis Johnson here at Just Love in Murfreesboro over on MTCS, one of my other favorite coffee shops. So this is my favorite Murfreesboro coffee shop. The other one's my favorite Smyrna coffee shop. Travis is with the Johnson Group Real Estate Services. He is an appraiser, and some of you that have known me for a long time know that I don't generally like appraisers, but that's all right. I like Travis. So Travis and I are in Rotary together. Have you been in a year yet?
Yeah, it's been a little over a year. It was March of last year.
Okay.
So it's been Rotary about a year.
Yeah, awesome. And you know, everybody that I've interviewed so far has been Rotarians and just good folks. It's a good group of people there, and Travis is no exception to that. So for an appraiser, he's a dang good guy. Let's put it that way.
Well, I appreciate that, John. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about the appraisal process and just kind of what goes into your job. It's one of those things, especially now that they've got the appraisal kind of separated, you know, where the bank orders it and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit mysterious, to be honest with you. Even for an agent, someone that lists a lot of houses, that kind of thing. The process is you know, where do they come up with that? How do they do that? You know, is this guy just making stuff up? You know, and we don't get to really dialogue a lot,
Right.
to kind of work together. And for good reason. I mean, the reason that the AMC stuff happened, appraisal management companies, by the way, for those of you that are watching, it makes sense. You know, there was some shady stuff going on.
Yeah, it was created, out of the follow the markets, and a few years back the markets crashed. The legislation came about in Washington that caused us to need to put a separation between the loan officers, the direct contact between the loan officers and appraiser to try to prevent that,
Price
persuasion.
fiction.
Yeah. Hey, can you bump this up a few more thousand? Hey, I need this amount. Can you get it? So they wanted to kind of do away with that, the direct influence. So they kind of put it there.
Yeah.
Which kind of more or less confused the process, delayed the process a little more.
And certainly remove the consumer from that. And
Absolutely.
One kind of common misconception. By the way, if you're watching right now, can you hear us okay? It's a little bit louder here than in other places, so just just background noise. But anyway, Taylor, I think you're watching. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. That'd be awesome. And actually, more importantly, if you can hear Travis, give us a. Can't hear Travis that well, she said. All right, we'll work on that. We'll move it a little closer, see if that helps. All right, he's much more handsome than me, so I care more if he's on screen than Travis. So what I was saying is the process, the valuation, how that happens. A lot of people think that appraisal is for the buyer, and it sort of is for the buyer, but really in a loan situation, the appraisal is more for the bank.
It is for the bank. That is technically our clients. Our client is whoever we reached out to us and we fulfilled the contract with, which is typically actually not the bank. It's actually the AMC, unless we're with somebody who we're allowed to directly order through them. But we go through the AMC. So technically, from a legal standpoint, they are our client. So technically and legally, and according to the contracts we sign when we sign up with them, we're only allowed to deal directly with them. So we're really not...
Them being the AMC.
The AMC. We're only supposed to discuss value with them, fees with them. Everything has to go through them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a misconception out there a lot, because we get a lot of clients who say, well, I paid for the appraisal, it's my appraisal, you can't tell me anything. And unfortunately, and I hate to say it, I have to legally say I can't discuss this with you, just because of the contracts we've had to sign with the AMCs that say we will discuss no value. So it becomes kind of that disconnect between who actually is needing the appraisal versus what we're allowed to tell them.
Yeah.
Same with the agents. We're not supposed to discuss value with agents. So we kind of dance around that area to avoid violating our contracts, which then could terminate our business with that if it's found out that we gave an agent a certain value and it was incorrect. So it could cause a lot of problems.
Liability.
There's a lot of liability, and the legalities that came into play with the advent of these AMCs have made it a lot more difficult to get our job and be more personable and be able to share what we know with the clients.
Sure.
Especially when we're in their house and they want to know what we think, and I'm just, and it's hard to say because I don't want to cross a line, tell them something that, maybe didn't come, true at the end, and then they have a right to complain and that I can get fired or, the contract terminated. So it's a fine line.
It's very interesting nowadays, and you want to believe in the power of collaboration, right? Because ultimately, what is a house worth? What someone's willing to pay for it, right? Ultimately,
the value is an interesting topic because you have price and you have value.
Right.
So a lot of people think they're the same. So you price the house. Agents price the house at a number. Say $200,000. That doesn't mean that's what it's valued at. So we are coming up with a value, not a price, which is going to lead into that question you were going to ask in a little bit about, what happens when you come under the value. We're not coming under value. We are giving the value. We're coming under the price.
Sure.
The price the home at, which is different. And I heard I followed some podcasts of some real estate gurus out there, or appraisal guys, and he went over that concept of cost versus value versus. And he kind of said, he used a bottle of water as an example. He was out in Las Vegas, and it was a hot day, and there were some vendors selling water. And they were only selling it for $1. He said for him, the water was valued at much more than $1. So he was more than happy to pay that dollar because value to him was different than the actual price of the product.
Where if he's selling it in Greenland,
right? So that's
maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a short example of how price and value are two different things to people. You're right. It's whatever people are willing to pay for it is the value to that specific buyer.
Right. And you're looking at market value, and ultimately your job is to tell the bank, yes, this is a loan that we can make because the value supports the price.
Supports the price, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of things we try to tell people is that we're historically data-based, so we're doing the appraisal as of that day at that time, and we have to deal with it based on historical data up to that point. A lot of times people are saying, "Oh, my neighbor's house is selling for this. Mine should
If it ain't sold,
and if it hasn't sold, we don't look at it. We can't consider it. We can't look at it." And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that because if their neighbor's house is selling, there should be that value.
Sure.
And that's a lot of times we have to explain we can't use that until it's sold. Closed escrow, recorded at the at the office, and then it's usable data for us.
So we're getting a little out of order, but that's okay.
Yeah.
This is great. Do you are you able to look at the market trend though? So if you have a comp that's 3 months old, 4 months old, 5 months old, but you know that historically our market is improving at X, can you take that into consideration, and how do you do that?
Absolutely. That's one of the timing is one of the things we're supposed to adjust for. So I do study the market a little more in depth and give this little report out. Obviously, your viewers aren't going to be able to see it, but
if you want a copy of it,
this is an older report I get that I did on the 2017 housing. John, so you can look. I break it down not by area. Well, I did by zip code, this one, but I break it further down into square footages, smaller homes versus medium size versus bigger homes, so that I could see the trends, not overall of Murfreesboro, not overall of a certain area, but actually what is the house that I'm working on trending at. And it gives me a different perspective on what the values have changed per quarter or year over year for that particular house that I'm working on. So if I'm working on a 1,500 square foot house, or 1,400 is going to fall into this category, where a bigger house, the bigger houses might have trended differently than the smaller houses. So I look a little more detailed at that, so that when I'm working on that specific property, I can then make adjustments accordingly to how the market is affecting that size home.
Wow.
As opposed to overall. If you'll notice here in the third quarter, these three went down from quarter 2 to quarter 3.
Interesting.
So this size home actually went up. Overall, they've all gone up for the year, but quarter to quarter.
Timing is everything.
Right.
And I tell clients about that sometimes is, let's say, and just you guys will, if you want a copy of this report, let me know. and I'll be happy to email it to you, scan it, email it to you. But what's interesting is, I'm actually pretty accurate here. I tell folks that your starter homes, right, your smaller homes, 3-bedroom, 2-bath usually, or something along that lines, have been increasing around 12%, right? But that doesn't mean 1% a month.
No, it's annual.
Yeah, and so, you're going to have a huge jump from Q1 to Q2, and then you might see that seasonal dip.
Right.
And then, again around Christmas time or Thanksgiving, you see them spike again.
That's right.
So that's very interesting. I was right, and you helped me prove it.
There you go.
Yeah,
and
boy.
again, this is older. I haven't put together the 2018 because we're only in the going into the third quarter, so
Yeah.
I'll get some of the data. And I used this the other day. I was at United Real Estate doing a class, so I brought just a small.
That's
snippet.
fascinating. Look at the jump from Q1 to Q2. This is really interesting. This is 2017. So this is your median sales price for 1,000 to 1,500 square foot houses. In Q1, Q2 of last year, it jumped from 155 to 179.
That's right.
That is massive.
Right. And so I like to narrow down the scope, because if you just look at the zip code as a whole, you might get some number that doesn't actually apply to that particular
It's
size.
irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. So,
Yeah.
And it gets even worse because sometimes MLS, which is our listing service, allows you to search for an area as a whole, like Area 29, which could be all the west side of Murfreesboro. It's just not.
It just
you
doesn't
can't.
work.
So that's why, as an appraiser, I try to break it down a little further, so that when I do, depending on when I value the house, I can make a timing adjustment if I feel like it's necessary.
Yeah.
Especially for homes that are over 3 months old, we'll definitely dig in a little deeper and try to make sure that the timing of that house doesn't need to be adjusted for.
Well, what's really interesting on here is the two biggest jumps are in those starter homes, and then in the 2,500 to 3,000 square foot range. And what's really interesting is I'm gonna make a prediction when you run these for this year. I think you're gonna see a glut of inventory from 2,500 to 3,500 square feet, and I think that year-to-date change is not going to be as flashy as this one is at 13.6%.
Do you find that to be because of the building that's going on? Everybody's trying to
Exactly.
build that.
Lots are
that
so
size,
expensive
right.
that's the sweet spot to build.
Like 20 to 2,500.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So pretty interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no
That is
problem.
very cool. All right. So tell me a little bit of your history. How did you get into appraising? How long you been doing it? That kind of thing.
Appraisal wise, we moved here to Murfreesboro from California originally back in '06. So we've been here 12 years now. I've been appraising ever since I got here. I was licensed. I got my trainee's license back in 2003. Probably been in the business longer. My father was an appraiser back when technology was not prevalent, and we had to do it old school. So I grew up with having to go to the photo shop, drop his films. He would go out, he would do an appraisal, he'd come back, drop the film at the what do you call him nowadays? The developer.
Yeah.
He would come home, he would tell me to go back in about an hour or two and go pick up the films. And
So
we had
1 hour photo was like a
one-hour
huge
photos.
deal for you guys,
Yeah,
right?
so he had to build a lot of things. He had to build a report with the 1 hour photo.
Yeah.
And we'd come back with a stack of photos because he had to submit 3 appraisals per, so we had to get, so you had to get 6 copies of every photo. And we, as kids, we got to, get a little allowance, and we had to take a glue stick and glue the photos to the page.
That's awesome.
So that was the fun part of the job. And he actually did his research on microfiche. He had this huge box on his desk. And
Yeah.
he got to search that's how you found comics back in the day, was
Yeah.
microfiche. So I've been around the business a long time, but then finally got into it in 2001, and then got my trainee's license in 2003. And then, for those who don't know, you have to, an appraiser has to go through about 2,000 hours of training under.
And that's a full work year.
It's a full work year, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't get paid for it. I was lucky to have my dad who was able to, work out a deal where I got paid a little bit. So, about 2,000 hours of that, and then kind of jumped right into it in the California market out there. In about 2005, 2006, the markets out there kind of slowed up a lot quicker than they did out in other
Sure.
parts of the region, so work dried up. And our family story is that my wife was looking to transfer colleges. She just finished up junior college, and so she heard of MTSU. And we had one person out here we knew in Tennessee. She had one friend. My wife had always wanted to come to Tennessee, so she started looking for houses. She was online looking for houses for about a year. She sent me a house and said, "Ooh, I like this one." I saved it to my desktop. So for a year, I worked on, I in California, but I had this house that was a new construction for a desktop. And one day her friend Jolene drives by, and it happened to be one of those houses out Barfield Crescent area that she drove by every day to get to her house. And so she sends her this house. She said, Tiff, you got to look at this house. It's still on the market. For some reason, it's been sitting here 6 months.
Same house.
And they dropped the price. And she pulls it up, and it's the exact same house. And I said, you know what? That's God telling us.
Here's your sign.
It is time to go. And unfortunately, at that time, my father also passed away in 06. So I kind of lost my mentor at that point. And so we decided, you know what?
Now's the time.
Let's move. So we put in papers, and we were renting at the time. And this was going to be only $100 more than we were paying rent at the time.
Oh, wow.
And we were scared. We were new homeowners, so we can't do another $100. What are we going to do? And we just prayed about it, and we went with it, and we packed our bags. We actually asked for a 20-day escrow, and they were able to comply. And we packed our bags in a U-Haul and came across to the great city of Murfreesboro and been here ever since.
There you go. 20-day escrow, by the way.
And they were able to get it done. And
hey, that's a California term. We don't say that out here. So I was like, yep, he's definitely from California.
We gave Jolene the power of attorney, so she went out there and signed all our papers for us.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so when we got there, the house was ready to go. So it was really just God opened up the door, and here we are, and we've loved it ever since.
That is a very cool story. So, I guess since I got you here, I got some questions for you.
Absolutely.
And this is stuff that, by the way, this is Travis Johnson with the Johnson Real Estate Group, and he's going to be talking about appraisals. So if you're just now joining us, if you have appraisal type questions or about his process, about just the process in general, feel free to type them in the comments. We can see the comments on the screen here. So if you have any questions, feel free to share those. So the first thing I want to ask you is this. A lot of folks, they'll call me and they'll say, hey, I'm thinking about selling. What will you come look at the house and see what we can do to increase our value, right? And, we talked a little bit about price versus value, the difference there. And so I'll go in and, usually for me, it's more about how do we make your house more marketable? How do we attract somebody, and how do we attract the highest price that we can? And then there's that balance of, if I spend X, can I get Y, right? And from your perspective, what are some improvements that somebody can make, and maybe long term, right? Not I'm doing this just to sell it, but just over the course of the next 2 years, 3 years, what are some things that people can do that will actually, from your perspective, increase the value of that home? I tell people, if you're going to put in the new kitchen, do it because you want to put in the new kitchen, not because that's going to increase the value of the home.
Right. Exactly. Because 99% of the time, you're not going to get out. You're not going to get back out what you put into it. And there is such a thing as over-improving your home, which people don't quite understand. So
got to be aware of what's in the neighborhood, right?
Exactly. And that's where paying attention to what goes on in your neighborhood and getting a really good realtor like John, who can give you that access to other homes that have sold and why they sold. And a lot of the things I try to tell people is we look at the age of the home versus the effective age of the home. So if you have an older home that was built in 75, things that are going to help improve that would be your roof, your electrical, your plumbing, things like that. They may be
because it makes it more like a 1990s
right.
home.
So what you're doing is you're bringing your older home up to speed with the newer homes, which allows me to then go search and compare it to the newer homes.
Gotcha.
That it gives me a different range of homes to look at, as opposed to staying stuck in the 60s and 70s with your shag carpet and your wood paneling.
Right.
You're bringing it up to speed into today's market, which allows me to compare it and justifiably so compare it to a 1990s home.
So if you've got a 1960s home and it is in the last year been completely gutted and renovated, can you compare it essentially to new construction? I mean, to some extent.
You could. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as a new construction, but you could definitely get it up there because you're going to look for homes that are. Obviously, we start with the gross living area, so size-wise, we're going to get there, and then we were going to try to compare it to something that's been more upgraded, and I'm getting a lot of examples of those in Nashville.
Yeah.
I'll give you some story. I'm working with this company, a hard money lender out of Texas called Longhorn Investments. They're into flipping properties and they loan money on those. So I'm going up here to Nashville in a little bit to work on a home. It's a complete gut job, so I'm appraising it subject to the completion.
So what is their complete gut job? Are we going to studs?
It depends. Everyone's a little different. Most of the houses are just demolished, and so they're gutting them, new kitchens, roast baths. Some range from a $35,000 total job to a $120,000
Sure.
job. But my job is to appraise the property subject to all that. So we're actually comparing it to all the other newer homes, or all the other homes that have already been upgraded.
So that gives them a ceiling that says if your margin is this, we don't need to spend more than right here.
Right. And so, yeah, exactly. So they know they're going to come out. But the house I'm doing today, and one I did a few weeks back, I'm being told is going to be used in that Flipper Flop Nashville show.
Oh, wow.
So I'm hoping to be a part of that. I mean, just on the back. So it's going to be nice to be able to go in and see these houses that are completely, torn up.
Well, don't screw it up, man. You'll be on national television.
Yeah, no, I'm not even going to think about that. But yeah, no, so it'd be nice to see that process, 4 or 5, or maybe even next season, to say, hey, that house was a complete gut job. Look how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
So it really just allows us to compare it to a different set of homes. But we do definitely start with the size of the home, the room count, things like that. But yeah, I would say the major, those kind of renovations, you do get some money back in your kitchens and baths would be your next step down. But if you think about it, as in terms of what you guys do, you guys sell the homes. So when you first walk in, you're looking at flooring and walls.
Peel.
So
move-in ready.
Move-in ready is what you guys sell.
But you guys are, so is it safe to say, like you said, roof, HVAC, water heaters, the mechanical stuff, the stuff that actually makes the house function is probably the most important to you?
So, and I get with different roofers, and there's no way to really tell how much a roof has got, so I kind of go with the professionals. We do surveys. What is a typical 1,500 square foot house roof cost? And if they say
a lot.
Right. So, and I kind of look at my house. I remember I had a 2-story house. And I think insurance, we paid around $8,000 to $10,000 for a new roof. So, I kind of get a gauge on what different size homes are, and I might say, okay, they got a new roof versus this house who's not. Well, I'm gonna up your house by $5,000 to $8,000.
Yeah.
It may not be penny for penny or dollar for dollar what you put in, but if I see you got a new HVAC unit, I know what those cost. I know what it does to a house. So you're going to get closer to your dollar for dollar.
Okay. So update systems is what you're saying.
System, electrical, plumbing, HVAC.
And then next would probably be kitchen.
Kitchens and baths are your next major areas. Flooring, things like that.
Windows, insulation.
Windows definitely is another one I tend to look at because I know the value of those windows. And so if we can tell from the MLS. The hard part is when you guys put your descriptions in, if that agent didn't list anything that I don't know.
Wait. You mean there might be a real estate agent out there that doesn't give a good description?
Detail, right.
You got to be kidding me. I had no idea.
So this is where our industries need to come together a little more and say, look, we rely so heavily on that information because as an appraiser, I can't get into every comp. And so I look at the photos, if there are any. I look at the descriptions, and we do our best to try to compare that house to the one that we've actually been in.
I had an appraisal. This has been a few years ago, and it was a neighborhood that is odd because it has a lot of basement houses. So it kind of goes up a hill. So it had a lot of we call it like daylight basements, walkout basements. And my client that was purchasing the home, that basement was totally finished. And I mean, it was finished at the same time as the rest of the house. It was exactly the same finishes in there. Had a kitchen. It was an apartment.
Right.
And right next door to them was another home that had a basement, and it sold significantly less than what our contract was. And they said, well, this house had a finished basement too. And we actually looked at that house before it closed, and that house had concrete walls still. It had indoor-outdoor carpet. Okay, it had literally like the green
stuff,
like green, yes,
yeah.
And it had like conduit running down instead of a furred out wall,
right?
And that was their finished basement. And I said it didn't have a kitchen, it didn't have a finished out bathroom, but the listing agent put in there finished basement. And I said, well, I'm telling you, I looked at it and we missed our price. It was like $40,000. It was a lot. Which is about how much it would have cost to finish out that basement.
Right.
So, and they just wouldn't hear it anyway. We got it all worked out, but I had to have that listing agent call that appraiser and say, yeah, I know I put finished out basement, but really it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Right. And I've had to do that on occasion, get on the phone with the realtor and say, what is going on here? Like what, and it's time consuming to have to track down realtors, especially if the sale is old, 6 to 8 months ago. If you guys even remember the house,
right.
Hey, you remember doing a house that, and then trying to get more detail than what was originally
and then getting them on the phone.
Right. So, and it is what we are supposed to call every agent on every call to confirm all the details of that.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's what they teach us in our training, that we're supposed to call to confirm everything that's on that MLS and all the financing, make sure there was nothing that was, not right, or cash, or was there any personal property involved, and those kind of things.
Yeah, any oddball stuff.
Right. That
Yeah.
would skew the value of the home, or why that price is different. So it could be time consuming, but yeah,
Wow.
it's important to fill that out with as much detail as you can.
For sure. Accurate detail. Accurate detail.
Right.
So, again, Travis Johnson, he's a real estate appraiser and actually a pretty nice guy, too. So, we like him. So, you talked about GLA. So, what is GLA? Everybody thinks they know what the state of Tennessee says is, So, first of all, start with what is GLA?
Well, GLA stands for gross living area. It's what we go by when we're measuring the house. It's basically the living area that you guys have that is under the roof, that is heated space under the roof, which a lot of people say it has to be heated and cooled. It does not have to be cooled. It does need to be heated because that's a survival thing. Air conditioning is not a.
So what about a covered patio with a fireplace?
No, that's gross living area is only the above grade living space within the home. Anything below grade, such as a basement, if it's a fraction of a piece of below grade, it is all below grade.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the house, if it dips below that line,
If you got a flower bed that's built up.
well, we can judge that a little bit, but you talk about those homes where you talk about where you look at it from one, it looks like a one story, you go behind it and it's a 2-story.
Right.
And no,
That's a basement.
is below grade. Covered patios, things like that are not included. Garages, if they've been converted up to code with the proper permits, which a lot of people tend to convert them but forget to do the permit process,
Right.
Can be considered, but again, it has to be heated.
And that's at your discretion how that's counted, right?
Right, it is, and a lot of times if it's done in a workmanlike fashion, then it works. But we will call the county. Sometimes I've had some that you look like there's just some things that I saw that wouldn't probably, and I'm not a codes person, but my limited experience would say, that doesn't look like it would pass code. There's something not right there. So I'll call and make sure that permits were pulled. And if they weren't, then to me it's unfinished space. And I might give it some value as usable for something, but we can't count it as a square footage.
So let's talk basements. I have a house. My personal home is for sale in Smyrna, and it's a split level. It's got a basement about 800 square feet down there that is finished. It is not finished to the same extent as the upstairs. It's got paneling, right? We talked about 1970s paneling. But how would you look at that? Let's say that the top floor is 1,600 square feet, and you're valuing it at make the math easy, $100 a square foot. So when you adjust for that basement, is there a rule of thumb for there? I mean, is it 50%? Is it?
It is. We're gonna include it on a different line on the appraisal, and then as well as if say to do the math easy, if your above grade is 2,000 square feet. When I do my comps, I'm going to go, and this is another question you were going to have. We start out by going about 20% each way. So I'm going to go 20% up, 20% down, and it kind of brackets your home.
Right.
So if I'm going to use a 1,600 square foot home in 24, and that's going to be the range of homes I look at.
Sure.
It's where some people they might send me a 3,000 square foot. Oh, it doesn't count.
You can't
It's out of my range.
Yeah.
So that's the narrow range we're going to start with. But a lot of people like to include that bottom space, thinking their home is now a 3,000 square foot total.
Right. And that's actually a flaw in our MLS.
Right,
It adds it.
It's a flaw, but it's also the way people list it
Right.
in the MLS. And I'm trying to find a way to get together with the various MLSs to I don't even know where to start in terms of getting some uniformity with the data that we're all using.
Yeah.
Because even across the country, there is no standard that anybody has to use for that. When you build a house, there's the builders have to have insulation is up to code. The stairs, everything is to code. When it comes to actually measuring when it's all finished, there's no standard in which you have to use.
Right.
And that's why you see all the discrepancies across MLS, tax records.
They're all over the place.
They're all over the place because everybody's using it for a different reason, and therefore they don't have to be as accurate as that. So
Yeah, because tax wants the dollars.
right, and tax records, what people don't realize, they were not originally designed to be used by anybody else. It wasn't used for the real estate industry or MLS or realtors. We've come come to rely on it, but it was not designed that way. So when they measure houses and they're doing it for their taxation purposes, they don't have to be accurate in their square footage because they're using it for a different purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll go off of people
An
make
outside
the footprint. They cannot go in your house. You know, if there's a dog in the backyard, they're not going to go in the backyard. So they're going to go to footprint. They might go if you have submitted some changes or plans over the years, they may add that to it. But that's why you're going to see that a lot of times.
Well, we've got a ton of Cape Cod style homes, and so you finish out that attic space, and that roof is all
those are
they're a nightmare.
they're a pain to measure, but a lot of times just by looking at the house, you can't tell if it's finishing
Right.
And that's where you get the skewed numbers as well, which is why we do a lot of the professional measurements.
You guys do that?
Yeah, I finished my couple classes I took on professional measuring. I haven't got my certificate yet, but it should be coming soon.
Awesome.
But we do that. I'm going to go this week. I got a couple to measure. So we don't
What
just
will
do
you
the
charge
appraisal.
for that?
For the local stuff, most of the time I do it for realtors. I do it for $150 for the average house. If it gets above 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, I might charge a little more.
Sure.
And if we have to travel, we might, we do a lot of local stuff. But I go as far as Clarksville. I go all the way down to Fayetteville.
Well, that 150 is money well spent. If
It is.
if you think your house is 3,000 feet and the tax record shows it at 2,500, 500 square feet's a lot.
Right.
And if we list it at 3,000 and it does come back in the appraisal at 2,500, we're going to have a big problem.
You're going to be off, and I've experienced that both ways with the same thing with basement type home.
Yeah.
And the agent chose to, even though I separated them out, she still chose to list it as a 3,000 square foot home, and it was really 22,000 with a 500 square foot basement and a 500 square foot garage.
That's
Built-in garage.
totally wrong.
Totally different. So
Yeah.
and then they priced it as at like $100 a square foot, putting them up in the 300,000 range, and it didn't sell. And then the other one I just did recently, this past week, tax records had it at 23. Bonus room was finished differently than they had it. So I came in at 25 plus, which again, that's 200 square feet and $100.
That's a lot.
You're talking about a 20,000 square foot difference in pricing, which if you go back to that report, you're also putting yourself in a different range of where those values could have increased or decreased. So it is money well spent for the agents. A lot of times the agents pay for it themselves as part of their process, and there's other times where they get the client to pay for it. It is money well spent up front, so that you don't have any surprises on the back end, because that's what you don't want.
Well, and our MLS is easy. I mean, we can take that line diagram that you give and load it right there on the MLS. So here's our proof for our square footage.
And part of my reports, when I'm doing the measurements, I'll do the interior room measurements. We don't on a regular appraisal because it's not necessary for the banks. So I'll give you the interior room measurements because I know which ones you guys need, the living room bedrooms. And make it I round up or down to the nearest half inch just so you guys can input it properly. So you guys can then take that information and just put it directly.
Plug it right in.
And then when you get that area, it says, where did you get the square footage? It doesn't say tax records or owner's supply.
Measurement.
It says professional measurement. And then other appraisers will rely on that more, I know I do, than something that says tax records or owner supplied or builder supplied.
Or agent measured. I cannot even begin to imagine why an agent would measure a house for someone and put it on there.
So it plays a big role in our trust of the data going forward. So.
Makes sense. So, all right. So, living space, it's got to be heated. What about if you're counting bedrooms? Does a bedroom have to have a closet? You hear that a lot.
It used to be that's what it had to do. Some of the rules I've heard is changing. It now just needs to have an ingress or
two, right? A door inside and then a window.
So typically, because you run into a lot of the homes, especially the older ones, where there were closets in there. There may have been a wardrobe. And so you want to. So it's more or less now that you have to have a way in and a way out. And sometimes we're taking into consideration different things, but that's and that plays a big role in the basement areas where we see the
no doubt.
A lot of people are listed as a 3-bedroom home, a 3-bedroom basement home. But when I go down there, there's no, it's a dark room. There's no walls.
It's essentially a closet.
It's essentially a closet or big deal. So we've had to say no. This as far as basement goes, you only have 1 bedroom, and then a family rec room, however you want to label it. But we can't count that as a basement bedroom. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that we're going by now.
Cool. All right. So you heard that. Don't necessarily have to have a closet.
Doesn't necessarily have
I had a discussion with someone the other day. We'll leave it at discussion about that. It was polite but firm, right? Isn't that what the security company says? All right, so comp selection. Okay, so you got a house, let's say in Green Tree subdivision in Smyrna, right? Tons of houses in there, lots of turnover, lots of stuff selling. You got this house, it's 2,200 square feet. It's somewhat renovated, maybe they changed countertops, but it's not totally redone. Okay, it is the only one of that floor plan that you can find that's sold. Okay, how do you comp it? How do you find comps for that?
Well, again, like I said, the square footage is where we start. That's kind of what we're supposed to do. It's kind of what the lenders and the AMC.
You start with area first, though.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. We're gonna take your house, and if it's in a subdivision in the area of Smyrna, I'm probably gonna start with a half-mile radius. And if I can narrow it down and squeeze it down, that'd be great.
Just into the subdivision.
Yeah, into the subdivision. And really, that's where we're first going to go is the subdivision. So I might even list the subdivision itself and see what's sold in that subdivision.
Yeah.
Because those are ideally the best comps because
Sure.
you guys are locationally similar to all the
Schools are
schools.
same.
You could have a railroad track. You could have a river.
Yeah.
You could have the different external things that play a factor. But if you take a comp that is in that neighborhood, then those factors are typically priced into that comp already.
Should be, yeah.
They should be, right. So we don't have to subtract back out. But we'll start comps to, at least, 5, 10, 15, 20 that I can kind of get some data out of and kind of throw out the outliers, some that may have been, foreclosures, some that may have sold for whatever reason. They just seem way too high for the market and kind of throw those out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're gonna start with the radius, and then we're also gonna start with the GLA or the gross living area, and kind of do a 20% up and down on that, and keep a range. AMCs are really big on us bracketing the homes. It was never anything that was taught in our industry. It's not taught in our industry, but
What does that mean, bracketing?
bracketing means, like I said, if you have a house that's 2,000 square feet, they're going to want a comp that's 16, 17, 18. They're going to want a comp that's 21, 22, 30.
That's interesting. So I actually try to price my houses that way. So I'll try to find 7 or 8 and list them and essentially force rank them. Right. So if the top price was $400,000 and the bottom price was $300,000, and you've got every price in between, where does this one fit?
Right. And that's kind of, I guess, what they're after. I mean, it doesn't always work, because
Sure.
sometimes we have instances where you have those model homes and they are identical footprints, but for some reason the MLS is off of 20 feet here. So when we actually put the number in, we may not have one that bracketed according to MLS on the lower end, but they're identical homes. They're exactly identical, so we don't care. This is not difference. And we'll get it sent back to us. Please bracket the homes. Like we're trying to tell. Why do you want us to
This
bracket
is
them?
the
This is
same
the
house.
exact same house. It is the best comp you're going to find, and we still
And
get
it sold last week.
right. And we still get it sent back as to please give an explanation as to why you didn't use a smaller home. And so these are kind of the pitfalls we run into with the.
And it's ultimately all about covering your rear end, isn't it?
Yeah, it is about covering your butt and making sure you satisfy. And I know what the AMCs are doing because their client is the bank.
Yeah.
And they have to keep their client. It's all business.
Yep.
So they have to satisfy the bank. We have to satisfy them. And it becomes just a kind of a power struggle of who's right, who's wrong.
Well, and it's got to fit in a box. You don't necessarily get to use your brain.
That's right. And that's where I tell people, for your viewers out there who like to use Zillow. Zillow is our enemy. I would tell them, don't trust these estimates, don't trust Zillow, because again, they're pulling from tax records, they're pulling for all the information they can find that's publicly available, but they never actually see the house.
You're right.
They don't know the
can't
area,
gauge.
and they use algorithms that search a parameter, and if they see a house next door sold, they're going to use it regardless of what it is. They just think that's the next best comp, even though it could be a completely different age.
And it's possible that it's correct, sheerly by luck, right?
But it's not the best thing to rely on.
They've never they don't know how it smells. They don't know.
They don't know
that it has
if
moss
it's garden
carpet.
inside. Right. They don't know anything about it, especially up in Nashville. For those of you that live up in Nashville, you guys know, especially on the east side, and where they're taking those older homes and they're tearing them down and they're putting up the horizontal property regimes. I don't know if that shows up, on Zillow's thing and say, oh, now this area is selling for $400,000 and $500,000. but not the little brick home that's still there is not going to sell for $500,000. So,
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's
it's,
fun.
it's one of those things that are there. Information wise, it might be good, but don't rely on it. Call a professional. You know, especially one that's in the market daily.
Do you? I'm throwing you a question I didn't prep you for. Do you recommend people have an appraisal on their home before they list it, or do you think that that a lot of agents, at least, can do it, and it's okay to wait until you have a contract to go by?
More and more, I would suggest they do. Several reasons. Again, well, not just because I do them, but like John said, you want to cover your rear. And I've gotten to situations where you got all the way to the closing, and people have packed up their homes and they're ready to move in, and the loan doesn't go through because the appraisal's off or the square footage or something.
But if it's a neighborhood home and it's pretty easy to comp it out,
I think if the realtor is confident, then I wouldn't suggest it, other than for the fact that you want to get the measurement right, but then you don't need the whole appraisal. But if you have a professional, and you guys have been in the business a while and you feel comfortable with it, then not necessarily. But if you're new in the business, I would suggest it really makes for a good negotiating tool.
Sure.
For me, if I'm a buyer and I walk into a house and I see an appraisal sitting on the counter, and I can kind of thumb through it and say, it just shows that you did your due diligence up front. The client did their,
we're not
seller,
shooting in the dark.
Right, you're not shooting, because I can look and say, and it gives me a little more confidence to say, wow, I see why they priced the home the way they did.
Is it true that appraisals without a contract, are they going to typically come in lower than the contract? Or it shouldn't matter, right?
No, it shouldn't matter. And a lot of times, and I hate that they send us the contract at all, other than it has to be that we have to put it in the top portion of the report. But to be objective, I try very hard not to look at it, because it kind of throws my mind out. So not necessarily, but we try not to look at the price, and we just do our job the way we normally do it, as if it was a refi, and then kind of bring the contract in afterwards. And that's kind of sometimes where you get where you were saying that sometimes the price that was said, the value that we came in under the price, because we're doing our job as if it's not a purchase, it's just a refinance or something like that.
Do you think a lot of appraisers do it that way?
No, I think a lot of appraisals that you'll see that they come in right on the dot of what the purchase price was.
It's amazing. Isn't it?
It is amazing, but that can be good and bad, because the problem is, what if the price changes, or what if something goes on and you want to have some wiggle room? So if I feel the house is priced more or valued at more, then I'll put that, and that might give the bank more room for upgrades or for changing the way
Sure.
the deal is done. So I think that's important to value it as a true value, as opposed to coming in like the contract price.
Gotcha. Well, two more questions. If you guys have any questions for Travis, if you've had an appraisal situation or whatever, and you want to ask a question, or maybe you're getting ready to sell, you're going to call me soon, and you want to ask Travis anything about that, feel free to type those in. And great conversation so far. I appreciate it very much. All right, so government loans, FHA, VA, THDA, rural development, all of those. They've got that extra layer to the appraisal where I hesitate to use the word, but it's almost like a miniature home inspection to some extent.
It is, and full disclosure, I'm not FHA certified anymore. I did them back in the day. Probably about 10 years ago when I first got here.
Is it a hard certification to keep?
No, it wasn't. It was no. It in itself is not. They changed the rules when the markets crashed. You had to. They no longer wanted appraisers. They wanted everybody to be a certified appraiser. Which, for those of you that don't know, there's 3 levels of appraisers. There's a licensed appraiser, which I am. We can do residential homes, 2 to 4 multifamily units, land appraisals, up to $1 million in value. So the lowest level can go to $1 million. Then you become certified, and then you can do same type of properties $1 million plus in value, and then you become general certified, and those are the guys that can do the commercial properties. So I get that question a lot: can you do commercial? We're not licensed to do commercial appraisals. The certification for FHA did not change, and I was on their list, so I passed all the requirements to do it. They changed the licensing status. I was not certified, so therefore I got kicked off the list. So
Gotcha.
that as a disclaimer. As far as the FHA, you're right. They are like little mini mini home inspections.
Not a substitute for a home
No,
inspection.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I do recommend home inspections
Yeah.
because they are going to catch something that the average typical buyer or real estate agent or myself.
Because that's their job.
That's their job, and it's not mine to look at. But FHA, they are gonna look at stuff like electrical, the wiring. They're gonna check a few appliances. They're gonna turn on your AC unit, make sure it's working, and they have criteria that they have to follow as well. So again, you talk about what pitfalls. It comes down to the mechanics of the house, the functionality of the house,
And safety,
Safety.
right?
Safety is a big one. Is it livable? Is it safe? Stuff I come across all the time that people don't think about. A simple handrail coming down your porch.
Yeah.
And I don't again know the exact requirements, but I do know if you're missing a handrail, it's going to hold up real long.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you to fix it. And I've had to go back out and inspect the fact that
And
they
so,
have to.
so a seller has a house that they're selling as is, right? Can they still do an FHA loan? The answer I always say is yes, we can try, but it may come a time where that appraisal comes back and it's subject to a handrail,
Right.
for example,
You're gonna have-
and you're either going to have to do it or the deal is going to
It's
fall
going to go
through.
through, right? So, and that's some people just don't want to do it, and they might go that route. But those are small things that even railings off a deck. Really, it does come down to safety. A safety hazard. The bank is not going to want to loan on a property that could become a safety hazard or be deemed unlivable.
Right.
So again, it's my job. I don't check the electrical, but I know if you get an FHA appraiser, they're going to come in with their little,
Tester,
wand and
spot
they're going
check.
to spot check a few spots. I think they even have to open windows to make sure they all open.
They look for window screens,
Yeah.
that's always been interesting to me.
Yeah, and it's funny because it is on the report. We do have to put it their screens.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It doesn't make a difference to me.
Well, in the
whether
heat of
it's
the summer in Tennessee, I ain't
Yeah,
opening the window.
exactly. So it really boils down, from what I remember, is a lot of the mechanical stuff of the house, the bones of the house, make sure it's livable, things like that.
Awesome. All right. Last question. This is the one I always get in trouble on, okay? Because I know what I do in this situation, and it's not necessarily what you should do. So I need you to educate me on what to do if that appraisal comes in short. Okay? We've got a contract for $200,000, and you showed up and you've appraised it at $180,000. Okay? As a listing agent, what is my responsibility, and how do I go about it? As a homeowner, what is their rights, if you will? What can they do? From a lender's perspective, like what happens then? Okay.
Okay, and I'll see if I can do the best I can, because again, I only know my side of the deal.
Yeah.
And once I submit that appraisal, I don't know what the lenders do. I don't know the financing. I don't know how that works
But
on the lender's side.
Can I talk to you first of all?
You can talk to me, and I'm happy to talk to you guys, the agents. And a lot of times, if I see something coming in short, I'll call ahead and say, doesn't look like it's coming in where you guys think, and I'll ask, where did you come up with this price? And some agents are very thorough, and I had one lady that sent me a few comps, and then I looked at it, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I see where that worked. And so before I submitted the appraisal, I was able to kind of collaborate, and see where her mindset was.
And that's legal and ethical. And
Yeah, we can do that, absolutely.
Okay.
And again, with our MLS system, because we do a mapping, sometimes it's inaccurate. Sometimes comps that, should have been in that radius, mapping issue.
Sure, they geocode it somewhere
Right,
else.
it could be somewhere else, and so I may have missed it because where the agent found it, and I'm happy to look at it. So I would say that the whole process would be, if you feel like you have comps that are justifiable or show something different, you would have to take your complaint to the lender. The loan officer would then feed that complaint or those comps to the AMC, who then has to reopen the file, send it back to me, and say, please review these comps, make any notes, make any adjustments, or just comment as to why you couldn't use them or why they're usable. So we get that all the time. We respond, and it may not come back in the actual appraisal that way, I don't know, but we respond and say, comp A was not used because of this, or after further research, after reviewing it, we decided to use comp A, and so we're not always all about we're not going to change it, but it really depends on the realtor doing their job up front. If I've had people call and agents call and just say, well, I know this horse property should sell for more. Well, I need proof. We have to prove.
You gotta have data.
We have to have data that proves to the lender that it justifies the value, not just I think it should sell more because it's horse property.
Because it's pretty.
Because it's pretty. That becomes personal opinion. and we can unfortunately quantify that.
Yeah.
So we definitely need historic data that backs it up, and a lot of agents are very prepared for that, and then there are some that are not. Another thing I would suggest, I did a huge house in Smyrna. You're probably familiar with it. 3 doors down, the man made he owned it. He was selling it, and they priced it real high. And I called the agent to say why. They said, "Oh, well, we had it appraised, and come to find out, it was appraised 2 years ago, and they never changed the appraisal. So they used the appraisal from 2 years ago." And then I said, "Okay, well, please let me see the appraisal, and I'll look to see what those comps were." And we're talking about up in Smyrna, west of the 24. They took comps from out West Cassis, and all over Rutherford County, they went to find these comps, and they just weren't comparable. So not only did I have to tell her, one, that appraisal was probably wrong to begin with, but now you're using an appraisal that's 2 years old, and you didn't bother to go back and update it to see where it came in. So they had it listed almost $1 million, and I couldn't find anything over $750,000.
Wow.
And one of the houses a few doors down, which if you're familiar with that area, there's big houses over there.
Yeah.
And it was
off of Rocky Ford, right?
Right. So it's a comp that was worth using because identical as far as basement and square footage. You just didn't do the agent didn't do their homework up front. Relied on data that was way old. So
what is too old? More than a year?
Typically, they used to be good for a year. Now, with the way the markets are moving, the rapid rate of appreciation, we try to 6 months is probably the max we're going to use. If you're going to use an old appraisal, lenders are going to want it updated after 6 months.
And 3 months is ideal.
And 3 months is ideal, yeah. Shouldn't have changed too much in 3 months if you did the job and the research right. But you get to be a year old, and everybody knows the markets are moving and shaking.
Well, you had 13%.
13% in one area.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that's just the 37129s.
Right.
So I mean, it could be completely different depending on what side of town you live on, whether the schools are going in, whether shopping is going in. It just all depends. So
awesome. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have. What else do people need to know about you and your company and what you're doing? And
I think one question I get asked a lot is, who do you do appraisals for? I am an independent contractor. I do own my own business. So we can do appraisals for anybody. We just have to stay within those guidelines that my license allows, which is up to $1 million in value. We can do land appraisals.
What's your business phone number?
I'm gonna give you my cell because the cell phone is 615-686-4093. But the way we are, half in the field, half in it's easy to know. But I'll give you my number. The office number is also 615-893-4495.
Cool. And I'll post that in the comments when we get done. So if you need any appraisal work, give Travis a call. He's a good dude, knows what he's talking about. And
I would say if you have any questions at all, this is an area that, buying and selling a home and people moving, it's a big deal for them.
It's a huge deal.
I know they rely on you guys and the trust issue, and you want to make sure everything's right. But if you're an agent and you're just not sure, we get a lot of the not sure agents when we start to get more rural.
Yeah.
And so give us a call. We may not be able to give you a value or an actual appraisal, but we can kind of give you an idea that'll narrow your scope a little bit more of a value range that we would come in at, and you can kind of gauge from there whether you guys are completely off or right on point.
I just thought of another question.
Yeah.
What do you do if there just aren't any comps?
Well,
I mean, it's a truly unique property.
If it's unique and it's we get that out in rural areas where it's custom built, and we really start with the parameters that we have to. We just continue to branch out radius wise, time wise. We just kind of expand each little area until we find a comp, and then that's close, and then basically we will have to make the proper adjustments to kind of bring it in line with where we feel it is, and then in the report itself we just have to explain away pages and pages of explanation to the lender as to why we did what we did, why we felt it, what justification we have for having to go out that, lack of comps, lack of size, lack of this. So anything we change outside of what is typically expected of us to do, we just have to explain it real well, and hope the lender accepts our explanation. You know, I just did a unique house down in Fayetteville, Flintville. You know, if you guys have made down in Flintville.
I've never even heard of Flintville.
Flintville is just a little town, Fayetteville, and then you go like a few streets over, you're in Flint. It's all rural.
Oh, it's a suburb of Fayetteville.
Yeah, it's north of the Alabama border. It's a one-bedroom, one-bath house, little cottage on 2 acres. The garage is built in, so they lived up above the garage. You know, I had to do my best to find a comp, you know, but knowing the bracketing that they want us to do, I had to find another one-bedroom house. I had to go all the way up closer to Tullahoma, just so it was in the report, so they can't say that I didn't find a one-bedroom house. And it came back with a laundry list of, why'd you do this, why'd you do this, you know. Because, again, a lot of these lenders or AMCs are not from Tennessee. They're not rural. They've never been here. They may be from California or New York, and they want to know why I went outside of a half a mile to find a comp.
Because there's literally no human beings.
Your neighbor may be a half mile.
There's 10,000 cows and no people.
Right, and those markets are even slower, so there's not as much volume.
Yeah.
You may have 10 sales in a whole year within 3 miles, because nobody, if you're down there, a lot of people aren't moving.
Yeah.
So we just have to explain away and do our best to, you know, to make sure we've justified and use data to support our adjustments.
Gotcha.
So,
all right.
They're tough, but they're fun.
Yeah. Well, fun is subjective, isn't
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time.
Appreciate the listeners.
And you guys hit me up or hit Travis up if you have any questions.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put his numbers up there in the comments. And thanks for watching.
I appreciate it. I'd like to say one more thing. As appraisers, we like to I take the bullet sometimes for other appraisers. I can't answer everything as to why another appraiser did what they did. If I have the report in hand, I can kind of maybe explain it a little more. So go easy on us. It is all subjective, and every appraiser is different.
You know, I got a letter from the VA main office one time because I was too mean to a VA appraiser.
Really?
Yeah, I got a little slap on the wrist.
And I will say
he was way wrong. Just FYI.
Yeah, and I will say just again, I don't know about anybody else, but the way our business, where we try to structure it, like I said, we're not allowed to talk to the client. My son was online and he just found a negative rating for us. A negative.
Oh no!
Somebody. And I know who it was. She called my office several times, and unfortunately, I couldn't discuss value with her. So I called my client, who said, "Okay, don't talk to them. We'll get in touch with the lender. The lender will call them." I left it alone. Well, I guess the negative rating said, "I've called you 4 times. He won't talk to me," and it's not that I didn't want to talk to her, discuss value.
You couldn't.
Legally, I couldn't, and I went through the proper channels to get to get it addressed, and I never heard back. So I assumed that my client took care of the problem.
Yeah.
But I never got to talk to her because we just legally, and every contract we have with the AMCs are different. So it was just a legal thing that I couldn't do, and unfortunately I can't explain that to people. And they want to know why I did what I did, and I just can't tell them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the disconnect that we run into with the way the industry is. Because I loved back in the day when I could call you, or I could call the loan office. I can go into their office, sit down, and they can hand me the order over their desk. Here, I got 3 more orders for you. No problem. And it just doesn't work that way anymore. So it kind of takes that personality, you know, out of it.
The salesmanship.
The salesmanship and the camaraderie between the industry. You know, a lot of stuff's done via email and websites, and you just don't get to connect with anybody. So, I wish it wasn't like that, but that's just the way it is, and that's kind of the way we got to roll with it. So.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you very much, and thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. This is Jonathan Harmon with the J. Harmon Home Team of Keller Williams, sitting here with Travis Johnson with the Johnson Real Estate Group, or Real Estate Services Group.
Appraisal and Real Estate Services.
Appraisal and real. I'm gonna get all those words in there right at some point. So anyway, have a great day. Happy Tuesday.
Thanks, guys.